Ubisoft essentially seems to be on fire. We have a number of very interesting stories for you today. First, that Prince of Persia remake. More issues with that. Second, Skull and Bones. We can't show you the leaked stuff because we would get copyrighted, but we can talk about it, and holy shit, for 10 years and at least $120 million, what the hell's going on there? And then, all the talk of acquisition and of them wanting to keep it in the family.
Absolutely.
It's
wild to think that they might have a game that I'm genuinely considering describing what if Duke Nukem Forever met Anthem in terms of development hell.
Holy shit.
So I think that's Ubisoft, goddamn.
Yeah, so for their first big mess up then, we've got the Prince of Persia remake, which of course was supposed to come out 16 months ago. In January 2021. Okay. Then it got bumped to March. Then it was bumped to 2022. Now, it was originally being developed under Ubisoft Pune and Mumbai, which is two of their studios in India, who basically were just making Just Dance games in the past. And I suppose suddenly this was thrust upon them, and perhaps Just Dance and Prince of Persia are somewhat different. So almost a year after the last delay announcement, we actually have got some news where this has been given to Ubisoft Montreal. Montreal is like the big heavy hitter, right? And it's going to release when it's ready, which I think basically means this is going to take a while.
Probably not this year.
Yeah, it's almost definitely not. Of course, back in 2020, people just kind of laughed at it for looking a bit rough.
Yeah, it was like, it's that thing where it was never intended to be this like massive like AAA release, but it just didn't look to the standard people expected of a remaster, especially when compared to their other output. And then I think that had them all, especially around the time they had to reconsider everything they were doing anyway. Yeah. Ubisoft were like, we can't release this. Okay, we'll give Mumbai & Co. time to make it better. But it just seems that like, I don't know what it is, but it seems like they just weren't equipped. They weren't set up for success there. And now they've had to go, we can't trust our own studios to make a simple remaster. Fuck it, give it to the A-team, give it to Montreal. They'll polish it up, they'll get it out the door. But we have to release something because we've released nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is rough story for Ubisoft, number one.
Yep.
The State of Prince of Persia. Next then, we've got Skull and Bones, which could be one of the big disaster stories of modern gaming. So we've got Tom Henderson, of course, noted leaker and guy who knows things, saying he thinks it's going to be a huge disappointment based on what the leaked gameplay confirms for him. Now, the leaked gameplay is basically a 6-minute long kind of introduction to Skull and Bones video. We have both watched it. We will talk about it, but if we put it in this channel, we would just be copyright nuked very, very, very quickly. But basically what it shows is there is no land or human-based combat or exploration. It is purely a naval combat loot game, essentially. Now, that's really rough because, of course, people think about Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where you had fun ship gameplay. Then, of course, you could, jump to the other ship with your sword.
And assassinate dudes, yeah.
You could go to an island and gallivant about the place. People then, of course, think about that other piracy game where you can do all those things. And it's, in spite of a sparse initial release, has had constant development, updates, stuff like that, and is a really healthy game.
Yeah, that's
everything I hear.
Yeah, I believe that Sea of Thieves has a bunch of stuff on the Game Pass on the Xbox client, a lot of Xbox players, but even just on Steam alone, it's sitting at like an average of like 15,000 players, and that's solid. Which is like, that's we're just done talking about Halo. That is slightly less than Halo's peak with Season 2, and that's just kind of their average rolling peak day on day. And it's got like the initial release, but it's also got all of those years of player feedback and development. Whereas Skull and Bones has just been sitting in a Ubisoft dungeon somewhere trying to be made.
Yeah, and things are weird. Again, it really sucks we can't show you this, but as an example, right? Whenever you down an enemy ship, you can keep on blasting it and it'll sink, you'll lose some loot, or you can go in and do a boarding action. In Assassin's Creed Black Flag, you would literally board the ship. In this, it seems like it just plays an animation. Some of the crafting, not the crafting, the gathering. It looks like you park your ship up beside an island, point at a tree, and then hit a button and the tree gets harvested.
Yep. And I think that's like, that's cool for like if you're going for the full captain kind of, okay, well, you want to harvest loads of stuff really quick.
Yeah.
And you kind of, maybe like, you're playing like Sid Meier's Pirates or something, and you're kind of leading this pirate empire or something, you'd want to do that. Because that feels very, strategy game-esque.
Yeah.
But that's not it here. It's just the equivalent of, we need the Horizon Zero Dawn kind of, oh, you're running around and gathering loot. But we don't have you run around because it's a ship-based game. And ships can't pick stuff up. We can't have like the Wind Waker mini game of like putting a grappling hook to the bottom of the ocean. So they just have the fuck, we need to do something approach.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so inhuman. It's so dehumanized. It's so kind of like what this just feels like pure video gamey as opposed to in any capacity being immersive.
And then the reason why you mentioned Anthem earlier was because there is some on-foot gameplay, but it's basically you going around the hub where you can go to the vendor to buy some things. So that's why there's the Anthem comparison. And even that, it's bizarre. Like, your hull gets damaged, what do? Well, in Sea of Thieves, you're on voice comms, you say, hey, could you guys go down below and get some wood, patch up the holes in the ship so we can keep going? In this, you open a radial menu and use a repair kit.
Yeah.
So that's one of your health bars is your hull. The other health bar is your crew morale. Now, you might think that maybe some decisions you make, as an example, perhaps you do a risky boarding action where loads of your people get like killed or something and there's some narrative or whatever. No, basically morale seems to be a health bar that's replenished with food.
Yeah,
it's just a quick little resource thing.
Yeah, almost more like we can't have you be out on your ship the whole time, so you can only bring so much food, so you can only be out for so long. But it seems like a really one-dimensional thing of maybe it'll drop a little bit if you're engaging in combat versus exploration to kind of time limit you, but it doesn't feel like a cool immersive thing. It just feels like, it just looks to us in terms of watching the footage. It just looks like, just use the food, nothing else to it.
Suffice to say, it's a really weak showing, and I think this reaction from Tom Henderson, now that I've seen the intro video and gameplay, it's hard to think how the fuck this game took nearly a decade to develop. Pretty much you just fight other ships to upgrade your ship, that's it, big yikes. Yeah. Now there's events and things like that, but when you look at that gameplay thing and you think about a fort attack, okay, do I just blow up some turrets and hit a button to play an animation?
Almost
it's
certainly.
not like I can have some gameplay where me and my crew, after destroying a bunch of turrets or fortifications, we hop up and raid the fort. That doesn't seem to be there at all because they don't have any combat there. Which is then bizarre because this started off as an offshoot of Assassin's Creed that did have all of these things. And this really does not look to be... It looks like it has more progression loops and stuff and a crafting system, but fundamentally, I'm still wondering how is there more depth than Black Flag? Why does somebody just not go and play Black Flag? And the reactions to the gameplay, I think, are just a resounding, is that it?
Yeah, it looks to me substantially more like the Division of ship combat. Obviously, Division has a lot of stuff to it as well, with like the world exploration and the events in the PvP. And some of that stuff might very well be here. It might be like a decent enough, like kind of living world in terms of gameplay systems interacting with each other, loot events and things like that. But it's very much that kind of Ubisoft. Oh yeah, this game is about progression systems and like a fairly tight, like kind of gameplay combat loop.
Yeah.
It's not what, people seem to have more of a hunger for these days, which is, the kind of more meaningful, immersive narrative exploration. And that's just that thing of this game probably would have been great if it released 5-6 years ago. Instead, it's just like, why have you been working on this for a year? Why, or 10 years rather? Why is this coming out in April 2023, according to Tom? That's just going to be way too late.
Yeah, and like from what we've heard, they've had 3 different settings for the game.
Yep, entirely different settings.
Yeah, currently it's pirates in the Indian Ocean, which I at least thought was an interesting choice purely because if you're mainly trying to market this to a Western audience and they think of pirates, they're going to think of Blackbeard. They're going to think of Captain Man.
Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow, that's it. So it's interesting that they're going away from the kind of aesthetic touch point to general piracy that even, say, Sea of Thieves does a sort of cartoony, fictionalized version of.
Yeah.
But we were looking at this, and it was Jared actually downstairs kind of turned around. I was like, hang on a second. Perhaps they don't want to set it in the Caribbean sort of piracy trade because they don't want to tackle the humongous topic that is slavery in that era. Which, of course, I actually can't remember from Black Flag if they covered any of that. I think they did a little bit. And to be honest, I cannot really remember if they did it well or if I would have been in an educated enough position at the time to know if they did it well or not. But that was like one other little thought we had. I just thought it was interesting that they didn't set it in the easiest place that they could market it.
I mean, to me, it's just a case of, I think Sea of Thieves did the better job of going, it's fictional. Whatever. Yeah. It's like, sure, you maybe want some realism, but you can always have like kind of more realism, a little bit more grit, a little bit more like, oh, it looks more real than the cartoony style. You could do that in a fictional setting. And then that would kind of let you avoid any of those like real world things you don't really want to engage with or whatever else. I think that would be fine for them to do. I don't know why they didn't. But there's like, it's in the Indian Ocean. I think maybe people will care. Who knows?
I think people would maybe care more if they were introduced to that via a narrative.
Oh yeah,
you know, if there was an Assassin's Creed game that, like Black Flag, was set in the Indian Ocean and people got to experience what makes that a different setting, what's unique and cool and the rich culture and history of that region, instead of kind of plonking it there. And perhaps it's a weird thing where just not a lot of the audience is educated about that era, knows about it. And one of the things that games can do that's really good is to teach people things, history, etc. Like how many people appreciate history more because of maybe an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Ubisoft
did. Total War game.
Yeah.
So it's just unfortunate. They could have done something really cool in this setting, but instead it just looks like it's the Division with boats.
That's the first thing that came to my mind when I was watching. As soon as I saw the damage numbers, I went, oh, fuck, it's the Division with boats. Why have you made this? Oh, my God.
They just don't have a handle on it.
No.
Now, one thing they're trying to keep a handle on is themselves.
Yep.
So there's acquisition rumors, and basically Eves wants to keep it in the family. In the family. Because you may not know, but it's actually a family business. Ubisoft.
The 5 Game brothers?
That's it. Yeah, so rumors basically showed up that Ubisoft were attracting takeover interest, not from other publishers, but from private equity firms.
It's weird. They've always kind of seemed to like live a little bit on the outside, where obviously it's like, you know, there were rumors cropping up like, you know, who could go and buy Ubisoft and add that to their portfolio. And I think a lot of people going, buy Ubisoft? That doesn't seem like I don't know why. It just doesn't seem like anyone thought about it or thought it was like a reasonable. It's like, they're a little bit kind of over there. What's going on?
Here's how I think it makes sense. Especially because it's a private equity takeover. How much... Okay, so a recent story we talked about was the offloading of Square Enix's Western studios. Yeah. Square Enix had a profit margin of in and around 14%. One of the Western studios was like 0.4 something percent.
That was Eidos Montreal.
And the other one was like 1.5%. So if we're in a situation here with Ubisoft, do you basically go in, take the things that work, so Siege, Assassin's Creed, almost take a Bobby Kotick-like approach. Do you go in, take the things that are actually in good profit and make sense to keep on doing, turn around with all the other experiments and wasted money and just say, fuck it, kill them all?
Yeah.
Because then you cut out loads of your expenses, even Skull and Bones, that's $120 million down the hole. When is that going to come back? But maybe you look at Ubisoft's overall position as a business, and actually, if you were to just strip down the company away from the things that it doesn't need, maybe it would be just a real nice, good, profitable business. Yeah. And you could perhaps offload some of these other studios, because we're obviously in a position where worldwide there is a shortage in development talent. So maybe the thought would be that you could offload assets that aren't working in a market where people generally want developers and focus in on the things that are profitable. Sometimes what can happen with some of those takeovers is you can go in, got the company, do a few things to sort of clean it up, and then it's kind of like in a nice profitable maintenance mode. I don't know, but something like that could kind of make sense. Because you look at this and you think, well, okay, are you buying that because you really want Ubisoft Singapore and what they do?
Clearly
Maybe not.
No.
So maybe if the company has long-term prospects that are a bit rocky because of numerous projects that are having troubles, maybe some private equity thinks they can just come in and kind of gut it. Maybe. I don't know. That's just me spitballing, but
yeah, I mean, it certainly makes more sense than, oh, we see what's happening with Skull and Bones. We definitely want in on that. Certainly makes more sense than that. But yeah, it's interesting that obviously then that would be a hostile takeover. That would be, because Yves and his family have like 22% of the voting shares, 16% of shares overall. So if someone walked in with enough money, they could just say, right, Gimmo, out. We don't want you to run the ship anymore. We're taking control of it. And obviously he very much doesn't want that.
Yeah,
it's a family business.
I mean, Elon on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's one useful thing is at least that's got hostile takeovers in the public consciousness now.
Mm-hmm.
Now on Twitter, the board, like they own a tiny amount of shares compared to these lot, but absolutely, yeah, you could just go in, got it, remove the board, there you go. So according to Deal Reporter, they've been seeking their own private equity firm to perform their own takeover, so almost a hostile takeover of their own company, so no one else can.
Yep.
So the Guillemot brothers would see all these other shareholders like, well, okay, we need money so we can get those shares so that it is ours, so that we just have a high enough percentage of shares. But of course, their leadership reportedly does have a fair amount to do with the company's current problems. And I think when you even look at their creative direction under this leadership team, we see the Tom Clancy name be dragged through the mud and messed up. We see Ghost Recon as a franchise be just totally fucked up. We see $120 million down the hole with what should have been Ubisoft Singapore makes really good ship combat. Okay, how do we turn this into a game in 2 to 3 years? It should have been that. How the hell did it end up not being that? A lot of issues under their leadership. So it's quite bizarre. But there you go. They're trying to do whatever they can to make those moves so that they can preserve their, just their position in their own company.
It's kind of awkward because the picture you painted of a Ubisoft that's just kind of gutted so the private equity firm can maximize profits doesn't sound very good for us as like gamers, but also the current way it's being managed also doesn't sound very good. So I think we might be in a little bit of a lose-lose situation here, to be honest.
Yes, I think we're in a look over there at the interesting thing that's happening, but don't get too emotionally attached. I think that's the takeaway.
Well, I mean, it is, especially the past couple of years, it's been very hard to be emotionally attached to anything Ubisoft does, especially their games.
Yeah. Why is there numbers coming out of the ships, man? Why is there numbers? Do you imagine if it's just in Sea of Thieves, if you shoot a cannon, 3,572, critical hit.
your cannonball, credible. Oh man.
No, a critical hit for a cannonball means you landed a nice shot and there's a big hole in the boat, and now one of their crew members, instead of manning a cannon, has got to go down into the deck to patch up the hole, meaning you've got more firepower than the opponent, because you can do all these things via fucking numbers, or you could just make them emergent parts of your design. You don't need to have a numbers and critical hit system when you just have the damage model that Sea of Thieves has. I mean, oh my god, it's insane. What numbers and RPG shit has done to the minds of some companies is... it's a scourge on the medium.
Yeah, but how are you going to know your legendary cannon for your ship doesn't do more damage if the number's not bigger?
I don't know, but hopefully if I buy an NFT of it, I'll be able to use it in Rainbow Six Siege and it will be well balanced. Awesome. Oh, dear. Right. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that this is a situation where we all watch the funny dumpster fire. We all have fun amongst ourselves, and then we just go play some fun games instead. So that's my recommendation. Have a nice day. I hope this journey through bizarre times was at least entertaining for you. We'll see you next time.